Have you ever dreamt of having the perfect FPL season? Well, that's exactly what FPL Quinner did in the 21-22 season when he finished 14th overall out of over 9 million FPL managers. In today's video, we're going to have a look at FPL Quinner's team ahead of the GW1 deadline next month, and he's also sent on a few tips from his perfect season back a few years ago, and hopefully you can put these tips into practice and hopefully get yourself a top 10k rank and also win your mini leagues too. We've lots to discuss. Let's get into the video. So before we get into today's video, quick reminder as always to give the video a like, and let's hit a like goal of 80 likes on this video. So head on down there, drop the video a like, and if you are watching this and you're not subscribed, or if this is the first time you're seeing me on your screen, first off, welcome to the channel, but head on down there, subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 10k subscribers, and fingers crossed with your support we can get there this season. There's plenty of pre-season content coming your way over the next couple of weeks, so hopefully I can earn that subscription off you. I'm also going to leave a link to FPL Quinner's social media pages, so head on down there to the description and make sure to drop him a follow. Right then, back to the video, and here on screen are a few tips Quinner sent me on from his perfect season back in the 21-22 season. I'm going to keep having to emphasise about 14th overall out of over 9 million managers, an absolutely crazy achievement. But anyhow, right, tip number one from Quinner was to stick to the template when starting off. That meant very few punts when starting off, just picking the popular players amongst FPL managers, and that led him to hold and rank against active managers in the game. Up until Christmas he had a good rank, and then he was able to push on for the second half of the season and going for a few punts. That led him to finish 14th overall. Next up was an early wildcard by game week 8, and this early wildcard for Quinner allowed him to attack the early fixture swings and get ahead on the price rises in the game. He also emphasised that this early wildcard played a big factor on his 14th overall in the world finish, as he was able to build up his team value, and building up the team value earlier on the season allowed him to afford hide the premium players in the second half of the season, where managers who didn't play the wildcard early and missed out on the price rises weren't able to afford these players, and that's where Quinner got ahead of the curve on those. Following on from this, Quinner was very patient with his transfers and he limited his hits throughout the season. He made a point to note that he only took a hit for a player if he was bringing in a player to captain him, or if he was bringing in a player for a double game week where he could optimise his chances of getting positive points in that week. And then we move on to one of the most, if not the most important aspect of the game, captaincy picks, and Quinner said might be a small bit vague, but he said captain good players. He plays the game like myself. You're probably sick of seeing my Haaland for the armband reels over on Instagram, but we both play the game the same way. So for example, Quinner would prefer to captain Salah against Chelsea compared to Matoma against Luton back then. For example, he said quality in the end pays off. So that's our 2 cents on the captaincy picks throughout the season. And then the last tip here was punts are for the season running. So it's similar enough to the tip number one, sticking close to the template. Make sure you're there amongst the ranks, amongst active FPL managers, still in the running towards the end of the season. And then Quinner chose his timings correctly. He waited for double game weeks to go for a few punts. Luckily for Quinner, the punts paid off, and that saw him rise to 14th overall by the end of game week 38. So that's a quick analysis of Quinner's perfect season a few years ago. So hopefully you can put these tips into action. Fingers crossed you can get your best rank of your FPL history. Top 100k, top 50k, maybe even a top 10k, or most importantly, just win your mini league and get your bragging rights amongst your friends. Right then, let's move on now and have a look at Quinner's Game Week 1 draft ahead of next month's deadline. So starting off in goals, Quinner has gone for a different approach amongst the majority of FPL managers. He's gone for two 4.5 million goalkeepers, so he's spending 9 million on two goalkeepers, Flecken of Brentford and Henderson of Crystal Palace. To be fair to Quinner, they do rotate pretty well. When Henderson has poor fixtures in Game Week 3, 6 and 7, he can then sub in Flecken when he plays Southampton at home in Game Week 3, and then Wolves and West Ham at home in Game Week 6 and Game Week 7. Me personally, I prefer just to have one set and forget 4.5 million goalkeeper. We all know how FPL plays out. When you bench one of your goalkeepers, they always do well compared to the one you start. So I'd probably advise Quinner on saving himself the headache and just go with one 4.5 million goalkeeper. I was going to say Robert Sanchez of Chelsea, but Chelsea are looking like they're going to sign a new goalkeeper. So that probably puts Sanchez down in the pecking order. Out of Flecken and Henderson, I'd probably lean towards Flecken of Brentford. They probably have the nicer fixtures to start the season. So I'd go for that 4.5 million goalkeeper, 4 million keeper on the bench, and then save yourself that 0.5 of a million. But anyway, looking at Quinner's team, not a bad start anyway. As I said, they do rotate nicely, so I can't have any arguments about that. That's the keepers. Let's move on to the defence. So moving on to the back three, if you watch my last video, Quinner has gone for the exact same back three as my current draft, so absolutely no complaints there. He's gone for Vardiol from Man City, my own football lookalike, and if you ignore Chelsea in Game Week 1, Arsenal in game week 5 and Newcastle in game week 6. In between those fixtures, Man City have a great run of fixtures up until game week 11, so we should see a lot of clean sheets and hopefully a lot of attacking returns from Vardiol if he does continue to play in that advanced role for City. Beside Vardiol on the fence is Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Quinner is a Liverpool fan himself, and he said Trent Alexander-Arnold is an absolute must in his team with that fixture run for Liverpool from game week 1 to game week 7. So he's hoping for some attacking returns from Trent, and hopefully we should see some clean sheets for Liverpool alongside Vardiol. Completing Quinner's back three is Mikalenko of Everton with his first 4.5 million defender in his team. Everton have a nice run of fixtures from game week 1 to game week 12. Maybe a few iffy fixtures in between that fixture run, but you could probably play Mikalenko in the majority of those fixtures. We did have a chat in DMs, and if it looks like Trippier is set for the exit door from Newcastle, it opens the door to bring Livramento into our teams. I'm probably eyeing up Livramento myself if Trippier does leave Newcastle, but for now, Mikalenko is in his back three. That's his defence out of the way. Let's move on now and have a look at his midfield. So moving on to Quinner's midfield, he's gone with surprisingly Harvey Barnes of Newcastle, Phil Foden, Mo Salah and Martin Odegaard for some Arsenal cover in midfield. We'll start off with Harvey Barnes. Haven't seen him in many teams at all, only 0.6% of ownership in the game. To be fair to Quinner, he started 7 games last season, 5 goals and 3 assists, so if Harvey Barnes does nail down a starting role in that Newcastle attack, there's every potential that he can return well. But to be honest, I think there's too much of a rotation threat, especially up against Anthony Gordon for a spot in that Newcastle attack. But I'm sure Quinner will be keeping a close eye on the Newcastle results during pre-season to see if Harvey Barnes does get some minutes under his belt in pre-season ahead of the start of the season. Up next beside Harvey Barnes is Phil Foden of Man City. We all know how good of an FPL asset he was last year. 19 goals and 8 assists for the Man City midfielder. And especially if it looks like Kevin De Bruyne is set to leave Man City this summer, that makes Foden even more of an attractive pick in FPL this year. And that's why he's risen in price to 9.5 million. Good to see Quinner has some Man City cover in midfield. And then beside Phil Foden is Mo Salah of Liverpool. We already spoke about Trent. Liverpool have a great run of fixtures to start the season, and he could easily captain Salah in the first 5 fixtures. So that's why he's got Salah in the team there. Martin Odegaard of Arsenal completes Quinner's 4-man midfield. He did want to try and get Saka into the team, but he couldn't quite stretch his funds. So Odegaard was next in line for some Arsenal cover in midfield. Looking at Arsenal fixtures to start the campaign, they're not the easiest of fixtures. Aston Villa, Man City and Spurs in the first 5 game weeks for Arsenal. But to be fair, Odegaard was a good asset in the game last year. 8 goals and 11 assists, so I can't really argue about the addition of Odegaard in midfield. Looking at the 4-man midfield here for Quinner, the probably one issue is not having any Chelsea cover with their favourite fixture run from game week 2 to game week 7. I'd probably look at having Nkunku in there instead of Harvey Barnes. But apart from that, Foden, Odegaard and Salah, you can't really argue with that. It's a decent midfield. Let's move on to his forwards. Alexander Isak, Chris Wood and Kai Havertz completes Quinner's team. First off, first point to note is no Haaland in the team for Quinner. He did tell me in DMs that Haaland would want to be scoring twice every week to justify that 15 million price tag. Game week 2 is going to be a tough week for Quinner, I think, but as long as he knows that going into that game week, he should be fine to get away with it. He does have Foden in midfield then for cover there too. So starting off anyway with Isak, 21 goals and 4 assists. No complaints why he's got Isak in the team. I've got Isak myself, and especially with Callum Wilson, a big doubt for game week 1. Isak should be starting that fixture against Southampton, and Quinner is actually looking to captain Isak over Salah for a differential punt to start the season. Alongside Alexander Isak up front is Kai Havertz, so that means Quinner has gone for a double Arsenal attack to start the season. We already spoke about Arsenal's fixtures, so I'm not 100% sure on the double Arsenal attack, but they do have a nice fixture against Wolves at home in game week 1, so hopefully Quinner can get some points there. And as I said, there's always a chance Arsenal get some good returns against Aston Villa, Man City and Spurs in those first 5 fixtures. Chris Wood completes Quinner's starting 11, and he's in the team based on his form from pre-season. 2 goals in pre-season so far from the Nottingham Forest striker. He's only owned by just over 4% of managers in the game, and with a start for Nottingham Forest against Bournemouth, Southampton and Wolves, he could be the perfect differential to see a rise up the ranks, considering he does nail down a starting place in that Forest team. So completing Quinner's 15-man team is Robinson of Fulham, Barco of Brighton and Rodgers of Aston Villa. We'll start off with Robinson. Robinson can rotate well with Mikalenko. He's got Leicester, Ipswich and West Ham in game week 2, 3 and 4, when Mikalenko's fixtures are a small bit less favourable compared to the Fulham left back. And to be fair to Robinson, he's also got an attacking threat with 6 assists last season. On to Rodgers there then as well. Rodgers is in good form for Villa at the moment during pre-season, so he could be one of the bargain buys of the season, priced at 5 million, and that's why Quinner has him in the team at the moment. But he's going to keep a close eye on Rodgers for the rest of the pre-season to see if he can nail down that starting 11 spot for Villa, and if he does, as I said, he could be a great asset on that price point. Barco then completes his 15-man squad, and he's in the team just because Estepinian is going to be injured up until September. Barco is priced at 4 million. He'll probably be playing left wing back for Brighton, and with that price tag and with that attacking threat also, what more can you ask from a 4 million defender? Just while you're watching this video, quick reminder on the FPL Era YouTube Prize League. First prize that gets themselves a Premier League jersey of their choice from the 25-26 season, and second place will grab themselves a random jersey from my own collection. The league is free to enter. All you have to do is you must be subscribed to the YouTube channel, so head on down there, click subscribe if you haven't already, and then you must also be following me on Instagram and Twitter, so make sure you get those 3 requirements ticked off. Head on down there to the description to get the links to my socials. Make sure you're following me and make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and best of luck for the season. So this is how Quinner's team is currently shaping up ahead of the Game Week 1 deadline next month. There are a few big omissions from the team, notably no Erling Haaland, no Watkins, no Palmer, no Nkunku, or no Arsenal defensive assets. He has told me there's about a 10% chance he does bench boost in Game Week 1, and then he could wildcard into Game Week 2 if he really wants Haaland for that Ipswich fixture at home for Man City. But for now, he is going without Haaland ahead of the Game Week 1 deadline. Let me know what you make of Quinner's team in the comments below, and head on down to the description there where you'll find his socials, and definitely head on over to his pages and drop him a follow. And if you have made it to the end of this video, please give the video a like, drop a comment below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're currently on the road to 10k subs. Hopefully with your support you can help me in reaching that 10k milestone, so I really would appreciate it. If you haven't already, head on down there, click subscribe and support the channel. There's plenty of content coming during the pre-season over the next couple of weeks before Game Week 1 comes around, so hopefully you will stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.